Desires of the body are natural. The desire for food, liquid, air, and comfort help keep the body alive. Psychological desires are a reflection of our unhappiness. If I got this thing, a car, it would make me happy. Our natural state is happiness. The sense of lack is what causes unhappiness. When we get what we desire, it's not the thing that brings happiness. It's the lack of desire, the lack of the sense of lack, that allows us to feel the happiness that we are. Inevitably, the sense of lack returns, and the next thing is the thing that we think will make us happy. Desires aren't necessarily bad, but they are a reflection of seeking happiness in the future. When you're operating as your authentic self, the sense of the egoic self naturally takes a back seat, so there are no others as the subject-object paradigm dissolves. Essentially, your treatment of others is a reflection of the treatment of yourself. You're not thinking of being of service, and it just comes naturally as the energy never leaves the harmonious state. The egoic self comes into play when a thought arises of, what can I get in return? If you are treating a mirror of yourself, then you're being of service to yourself through others. Nothing exists outside of your field of consciousness, and duality is experienced when still viewing the internal-external as two separate things. Everything in existence is both individuated and connected simultaneously, like cells of a body. They're not apart, but a part of a bigger whole. The unified state is realizing the observer and observation are one thing. If you're treating others, who is the one treating them? The treatment is a reflection of the one treating. You can't hate if you don't have hate in you, just as you can love when you already have an abundance of love within. All limitations are self-imposed, so you either agreed to a societal construct without realizing it, or it's the doubt caused by operating with the egoic mind. Money is energy, much like everything else in existence, so by looking at it from a neutral perspective rather than a right or wrong, it will allow you to align yourself to the abundance of infinite possibilities. If a voice in your head says, "But what if?" That's the egoic mind bracing itself for potential failure, which is perpetuating limitations. Focus on the desire and intention without an expectation of a specific outcome. So dismiss the how or when and stay on your initial why. Ask yourself, why did I desire this to begin with? You're operating with the infinity of possibilities with the desire and intention, as there's no worry about how or when it will play out. Focusing on a possible outcome is where the limitation is imposed. What's happening metaphysically is the bandwidth of energy that you're sending and receiving, so you dictate the flow of what's going out and what's coming in. Limitations aren't bad, as sometimes you need to limit yourself to not get imbalanced. It's like you need to drink water to sustain health, but drinking past your limits may lead to complications. You're learning how to work with your energy by understanding when to limit the flow and when to open it up, like hitting the gas or brakes on a car. Part of discernment is distinguishing the difference between a self-sabotaging limitation and a practical one. For any belief, ask yourself, does this actually serve my highest self? Allowance balances acceptance, as it's the expansion to acceptance's contraction. Pay attention to how you feel when accepting and when allowing. One closes and the other opens. For any acceptance, remember to allow yourself to be more free and open, so you're not being too closed off and limiting. So instead of just telling yourself, I will accept my conditions no matter what, remember to add, and I will also allow myself to experience, learn, and grow through these conditions. Accepting and allowing is like the classic saying, when given lemons, make lemonade. So you're accepting you got lemons, but you're not going to just eat it and leave a sour taste in your mouth. You'll utilize your creativity to turn something sour into something sweet and refreshing. In other words, finding the silver lining and turning the disharmony into harmony. The present moment state of being is your natural state, as it takes no effort as opposed to expending energy to survive, think, or act. Being is not doing. It's the neutral state prior to taking any action, which includes thinking. When energy isn't expended, it just rests and recharges. If you're constantly present, then you'll perpetually be in an invigorated state. Your life force is your energy, so if it's being drained, then there's very little in the reserve to create. Focus more on possibilities rather than limitations to operate on abundance instead of lack. You're building a solid foundation to add on to, and if the foundation is faulty, limited beliefs, it doesn't matter what you add on top, because it will inevitably collapse. The higher self views things from a detached perspective, so nothing is ever personal, and the ego is the adopted perspective which forms the limiting beliefs. To align with your higher self is to be detached from specific outcomes and work towards your initial passion. This is what it means to make your dreams come true, to stay on the intention and desire and not get distracted by what's occurring along the way to the destination. Your ability to take detours amidst obstacles will be the challenge. The path you take is all in the vibration, so as long as you're in the flow of excitement, you're following the path of your higher self. Monitor your state of being to recognize if you're in or out of alignment. If you have an off day or moment, that's okay. Just recalibrate by being present again to get back into alignment. Everything exists right here, right now, so to operate in abundance is to align with the infinite possibilities that can occur in the here and now. Enlightenment is an event in which the lifelong identity one has taken oneself to be is discarded through the complete and absolute surrender of mind. This identity is an accumulation of thoughts and emotions that have formed over the course of one's life like a crust over the top of the truth of oneself. It is mental noise. Me and my world. Consequently, enlightenment is not something that can be attained by the person. It is not a quality that is added to the identity. Enlightenment is the realization of ground zero. No time. Unborn and undying. No space. No edge. No other. Absolute aloneness, wherein nothing has ever happened, is happening, or will ever happen. It is the realization of absolute peace. It is the realization of oneself, self, as infinitely powerful. It is the realization of oneself, self, as infinite, impersonal, unemotional love. One atom of ego, of a me thought, makes this love unbearable. The only way enlightenment can occur is through the surrender of attachment to the mind and all its contents, which includes the surrender not only of me and my world, but also of time itself, past and future. It is the realization of the immovable now, absolute stillness, absolute silence. The nature of this self is gentle, as fine as gossamer and innocent. Enlightenment is the realization that God is all there is. There is nothing else. All seekers are God asleep, deluded by attachment to the me thought, the doer. All gurus are God awake, with no attachment to the me thought and consequently no sense of being the doer. Before enlightenment, water is carried and wood is chopped by a doer. After enlightenment, water is carried and wood is chopped, without the sense of a doer. What is required for enlightenment to occur is steadfastness, commitment, courage, a burning desire for truth and love for God. As one progresses on the spiritual path, there comes a point when one's mental world starts to fall apart. It is sometimes called the dark night of the soul. It can look and feel like psychosis. Anxiety and depression can occur as one's worldview, and specifically one's sense of self, begin to unravel. It can be terrifying. The love and devotion for God is what enables one to continue walking towards the mouth of the abyss, void, and certain oblivion. Love is what enables one to surrender. Enlightenment is that which cannot be simpler. The price of truth is everything. The mind is concerned with past, memory, and future, imagination. The seeker asks, How can I, or when will I, become enlightened awake? The mind projects awakening as a future event. Similarly, after awakening, when the mind returns, it remembers enlightenment as an event in the past, which leads to, I had it, I lost it. Enlightenment is stupidly simple. It just means to be here, between past and future. The reason it's so difficult is because the seeker is looking for it with their mind, which is the very thing that obscures here, now. Anytime the mind goes silent for whatever reason, that is awakening. One is awake to now. One is present. It can happen in sports, in the arts, through drugs, sex, relationships, near-death experience, etc. And we love it. We love being nobody in the here now. I've never felt so alive. Of course, as soon as the mind returns, we're back in time and identity, and that aliveness becomes dull again. That's why those activities are addictive. We love feeling alive here now. Spiritual practice, or the spiritual journey, no matter what it is, has one goal: silence. All the questions, all the meditation, and all the practices aren't for reaching some future magical state called enlightened. They're for creating such confusion, turmoil, frustration, anxiety, and depression that the mind and thought are surrendered absolutely. I give up. I just can't do this anymore. Suddenly one is here with the recognition that one has always been here now and always will be now. The surrender has to be complete and absolute. It can't be faked or half-hearted. With the absence of thought, here now is known. More importantly, it is recognized that what had been keeping one asleep in past future was mind. We have to be vigilant of the temptation for our attention to shift from here now to past future. Past future is useful as a tool to function in the world of time and objects, but it needs to be put back in the toolbox when done. To remain awake, as consciousness, requires continuous surrender, especially when sticky thoughts come, those with emotion attached. As Nisargadatta said, we have to straighten our hooks so that they don't get caught on the rings of life. In other words, that we remain unattached to our mental picture of me and my life. Meditation then becomes living in a state of constant surrender 24/7, no matter what the circumstances. Want to be enlightened? Be quiet. Don't move. Stay here.